My name is Jessie Ace. I'm part of a group of enabled warriors that you've probably never heard of. We're fighting back against our invisible illness and taking the dis out of disability. We don't give sympathy to our symptoms. They enable us to be the warrior that we are. If you ask doctors and nurses, they'd say what we're doing is impossible. But pushing the limits of our conditions is something that we have to break through every single day. See, we push the limits. We are mentally strong, and we can do anything. The question is, how far can we push those limits? This podcast will give you the answers. I'm Jessie Ace, and this is the Disabled to Enabled podcast. Hey Warriors, thanks for joining me for another episode of the Disabled to Enabled podcast with me, your host, Jessie Ace. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends at Beekeepers Naturals, natural health products created by bees. Their products are so good that I've not had a cold the entire winter, and that is unheard of. Did you know that without bees, we'd have no coffee? Crazy. Check out mmini.me/bees and use code WARRIOR for 10% off today, or click the link in the show notes. By clicking this link, by the way, Beekeepers Naturals will give back to the Disabled to Enabled podcast. Enabled Warriors on our show today is a singer-songwriter, producer and author who made his first national appearance on the 2018 American Idol season, which had over 50 million views. Since that time, he has appeared on The Ellen Show, been written about in the USA Today, Huffington Post, CBS and People magazine. He's releasing his full-length album Lionheart, as well as the book with the same title, Lionheart, on the 14th of February this year, and the book and album both chronicle his incredible journey of overcoming a spinal cord injury that left him paralyzed from the waist down. CD Baby, Discmakers and Book Baby are promoting a video series called The Making of Lionheart, which will promote the music as well. And our next guest also appears on the current Now What's Next 71 compilation album alongside Shawn Mendes, Katy Perry and Billie Eilish, among others. Enabled Warriors, please help me in welcoming to the show the amazing David Francisco, everybody. Woohoo! Woo! Hey!
What's up? Hello, everyone.
How you doing? You good today?
Yeah, doing great. Just waking up here in California.
Oh, what time is it there?
9 o'clock.
Oh, very good. Very good. Not too early.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's get straight into the first part of our interview with David. So this section focuses on what happened that day when things kind of went a bit hoo-ha, let's say. Keep listening to find out how he coped and thrived afterward in part 2, and keep listening after that to find out David's answers to the super quick secrets round. Okay, so let's get straight in. Part 1, let's do this. Let's get straight in by discussing that particular day in 2017 when you were on your way home from the Blackbird Academy and things kind of didn't quite go to plan, did they?
Right. So I had just moved to Nashville, Tennessee, Music City. For the first time, I'm going to take this city and I'm going to do music. And 3 weeks in, I'm biking home from class on a bicycle pedaling. And I get to the last intersection and the light turned green and I'm beside an SUV and we start going across. The SUV can see to our left that there's a car not stopping at the light. They slam on their brakes, but I couldn't see past them. And I just kept going and I got T-boned at approximately 35 miles an hour. Smashed my arm into the windshield. I got a nasty scar here on it. My body went about 100 feet down the road. And I don't remember anything from it. This is all just what witnesses told me later. But that's what happened. I woke up in the hospital. And actually the first thing I thought was, why are my legs off the bed? I didn't think they were on the bed because I would feel them on the bed, right? And my parents had already gotten there from Knoxville and they said, your legs are on the bed. And I'm like, what do you mean? I looked down and sure enough, my legs are on the bed, but I just can't feel them. And then I try to move them and I can't move them. And that was the first moment I realized, wow, something is really wrong.
That's crazy. I mean, just to put this into perspective, so you were literally just starting at the Blackbird Academy. You had high hopes to be a musician and, all these big dreams and stuff. And how on earth did that feel when you suddenly woke up and you kind of went, oh crap, this is great.
Well, It may have been the pain medication or a bunch of different things. It actually hit me pretty slowly. I knew something serious was wrong, and I'm like, "Oh, spinal," like, "Oh," I think I said something like, "Oh, it'll be okay. I'll be fine," and like, life will go on. And it was probably a little bit of that, like, not being able to understand and comprehend what had actually happened. So really, it took the next few weeks and months when I really started to understand what it was going to mean for my life. Being in a wheelchair for the rest of my life was the prognosis, and all the things that was going to quote unquote limit me from. Um, and once I started realizing more of that, and even things beyond my limitations in mobility, but how am I going to do music became another question that I really thought of a lot. And then finally, how am I going to ever be in a relationship again? How could I ask someone to sacrifice so much to be with me? Is how I felt. And again, all these things I don't believe anymore. But at the time, I mean, I felt like my life was over.
Gosh, that must have been awful. I mean, can you describe for us the lowest point of the story?
Yeah. Well, the single lowest point of the story was probably in that first month, no leg movement, no nothing. And I got a urinary tract infection because one thing you lose with a spinal cord injury is bowel and bladder function as well as your legs. That's something I didn't know beforehand. And so I actually had an infection basically in the bladder because it had never, guys' bladders are never exposed to anything. We don't have to go into details, but yeah, I had a fever of 104.5 that
God.
night. They had ice under my armpits and turned the air all the way down just to try to cool me off. And I just remember shivering that whole night, and the shivering made my back hurt, and I was having neural pain in my legs. It was as close to torture as I can imagine, just because it was so many different kinds of pain all at once at the
Mm.
same time. And it's, yeah, still hard to even think about. But that was the single lowest point. Honestly, though, every day it was deep and just grief, a lot of grief and sorrow over the things that I felt like I lost forever.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I kind of had the same thing when I was first diagnosed with MS because the left side of my body could just stop working like over.
Wow. Yeah.
Really weird. And you do grieve for like the person that you were, and you kind of like, who am I going to be now? This is really strange.
Yeah.
Totally get
Yeah.
that. But you kept a positive mindset throughout the whole of your physical therapy and everything, though. I mean, it was just amazing. It sounded so intense, like crazy intense.
Yeah. So that was one of the key things is I did grieve for sure. And I think that's actually an important part of going through something like this, as I'm sure you know. But at the same time, you have to turn off some of the long-term thoughts so that you're able to focus on today. And that's what I did, as I just said, all right, what do we have to accomplish today? And the thing that made that easier is actually that I stayed in a hospital for months. um, so the first month I was, nurses taking care of me full time, helping me learn how to do all the new things. Like, it was probably 2 weeks before I even tried to get out of the bed and transfer into a wheelchair. But that became my goal for the day. And I wasn't thinking about, or I tried to limit my thinking about the long term so that I could focus on, let's make the most of whatever today's situation is, because we don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. And
Yeah.
so that was a huge, probably the biggest part of the positive mindset. The other thing was I did have amazing support from my friends and family. And I think that's important for anyone going through something, is to have that support. Um, just because people were saying, you know what, we're with you, even though, you have this new situation, my family and my friends. And that was really important as well. Um, so that was another big piece of the mindset thing. Um, and then later, I slowly started seeing some recovery. So it was about a month in when I saw my foot move for the first time intentionally. Like, I was always trying to move my legs, and I'm on the phone with a friend one night, and I'm like, dude, I think my foot's moving. It was literally like a millimeter. It was nothing, but it was something because it was from 0 to 1%, right? So,
Yeah.
um, that was about a month in, and then I saw my other foot move a week later, and I'm like, okay, I can kind of twitch both of my feet. And which actually, if you know spinal cord injuries, that's backwards. Normally, it's like hamstrings and quads that are first. Um, but anyway, I just kept moving stuff, and our motto in therapy was, if it moves, put a weight on it. So we pretty much did. And I ended up spending 8 months in Atlanta, Georgia, at a place called the Shepherd Center, which is an amazing rehab facility for spinal cord injuries and brain injuries. And so, yeah, I spent 8 months there full time. First of all, living in the hospital, and then moved across the street and continued my therapy. Became fully independent in the wheelchair, and then ended up getting enough strength. I did this really progressive program where once I had enough strength to basically not even stand on my own, but be in a harness attached to the ceiling with a walker and stand on my stilts of legs. We did it. And then they'd be like, all right, now take a step. And I couldn't really move my leg, but then they'd get down there and they'd move it for me. And I was thinking about it. And so continually going through that process, the goal was to build neuroplasticity, which is like, I guess, regenerating neural pathways by continuously trying to send those signals. And by the end of the 8 months there, I was able to walk with forearm crutches, but I say that hesitantly because if my knees bent, I was straight on the ground, like
Mm.
super dangerous. And I was still super weak. I had almost no quad strength, especially in my left side. So that was 8 months in. It's now 3.5, 4 years in, and I am walking independently. I can squat some. I can't jog yet. I can't stand on my toes. Still super weak, but I'm still working out and still seeing some improvement. So I don't think I'll ever quit working out. It's part of who I am now.
That's amazing, and it's amazing
Yeah.
that you picked up that as well. That you've now like on this must work out all the time kind of thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you were suddenly kind of put in a wheelchair for quite a long time, how did you initially feel about that? I mean, I know we've spoke about it very briefly, but let's go into that a little bit more. So, like, for example, like going back to me again, sorry, I have MS and I could be in a wheelchair any day now, which is really
Yeah.
weird. And did you find that people treated you differently, like the people around you or socially?
Yeah. I it's hard to know because we actually have backward stories. Mine, I went straight to the bottom and then I slowly am getting better. For you, it's kind of the opposite. So for me, I woke up, no function. I'm going to be in a wheelchair. And it was hard and it was depressing. Um, but I was also at that place, the Shepherd Center, where everyone else on my floor had a spinal cord injury. And the
Oh, okay.
interesting thing that I learned is that you can always have it better and you can always have it worse, because everyone around me, almost everyone had worse spinal cord injuries, either higher up or just more severe.
Mm.
And so it was hard for me to complain. And as I started getting into the wheelchair and actually living and like going to Chick-fil-A or like going out to eat, um, and doing life again, I it I think I was so used to that culture of everyone's in a wheelchair that even when I went in public, I just felt like, oh, cool, I'm interesting to people, which maybe is a bit naive because it gets old to be looked at, and I still get that sometimes, even with the cane. It's like, who's this young guy like with a cane? Or even worse, when I don't have the cane, and that's where maybe the invisible illness comes in, is because when I don't have the cane, I'm like hobbling around, and especially in airports, I'll ask to pre-board because I'm still super weak. But they're like, "You what? You don't need to pre-board," and they'll be kind of rude about it, and it gets pretty tiring. But
Yeah.
as far as the wheelchair, to kind of answer your question, um, I never at the time felt too bad in it. Nowadays, if I ever have to use it again, um, it's hard, mainly because I've spent so much time working just to walk again, that it feels like I'm giving up or like a step backwards.
Mm.
Um, but at the time, I was not. I was totally comfortable and totally okay with myself in the wheelchair. And I
Yeah.
started dating my now wife when I was in the wheelchair.
Yes, and we were going to come to that in part two, but we can mention that
Yeah.
briefly now if you wanted to. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we can talk about it later, but basically, yeah, she saw past the wheelchair as kind of the sneak peek of that story.
That is awesome. So, going back to how it really affects you day to day, like here and now. So, because you still don't currently have any bladder or bowel function, is that right? I know you've spoken quite a lot
Correct.
about that in like the media and things. Can you tell us a little
Mhm.
bit about that? Like, how do you eat, etc., and how
Yeah.
your spinal cord injury is really affecting you still every day?
Yeah. Well, as far as bowel and bladder, I've learned a lot about kind of balancing it, because you can't go you can't just like drain everything out, because you don't have enough control to not have an accident. So you got to be like in the sweet spot of not too much, I don't know, fiber and not enough fiber. So I'm like thinking about how much I drink. I'm thinking about what kinds of foods I eat. All of that plays into how like how your poop is basically. And you got to be really careful too, because it's delayed. So like I'm having celery juice right now, for instance, and that will kind of clean you out, if you know what I mean. And it's, you know, it's important for me to know, okay, I had celery juice this morning, so tomorrow I need to be careful, quote unquote, or else I might have an accident. So I balance that kind of stuff. And also that affects bladder, because if I'm really constipated, it'll put more pressure on my bladder, which could make me have an accident more easily than if I'm, regular in the bowels. Then the bladder's easier too. So there's a lot of juggling and balancing with all of that stuff. And it's, again, something I never knew anything about before the
Yeah,
crash. But you get used to it, as I'm sure you're aware. And as far as legs go, they're still super weak. Sometimes I fall. Really, the only things that I miss are, um, I used to snowboard and mountain bike and wakeboard. Fun fact, I actually went this past Christmas to go snowboarding, tried it, and I was able to go down a little bit, but I got so tired by one run that they had this really cool thing at a place in Colorado called the Snow Go, which is now my favorite thing ever. I was able to, it's like a tricycle, like a BMX tricycle for the snow. So it's got three little skis on it. You stand on the back two, and then there's a handlebar connected to the front one. And it looks like a bicycle, and you can ride it down the hill just like skis. And I had so much fun on that thing that, now I'm going to get one just because I think it's so awesome. But that was a really cool way for me to be able to go down the mountain, and a very long side story. But,
that is
that's,
awesome.
yeah, my legs get tired. I'll just put it that way. My heels hurt because I don't have enough calf strength to balance my weight evenly. So I'm like on my heels most of the
Yeah.
time. Um,
How
so
do
yeah,
you find that being on stage and like do
mhm.
you sit down on stage? Does that help?
Sometimes, good question. So if I'm doing a long performance, I'll actually kind of like move a little bit, balance, switch from one foot to the other, because as long as I move, it's the consistent just standing that's the worst.
Mm,
Um, if I'm moving, it's a little better. I can go for about 45 minutes to an hour. Um, it will start being uncomfortable, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse.
mm.
But I'm also so focused when I'm performing that I don't even think about it. I'm there.
You're
I'm with
there
the audience.
in
Yeah.
zone.
Oh, in the flow.
I love that. So,
Yeah.
last question before we go into part two. Do you have any advice that you think, things that you've learned that you could help someone else going through a spinal cord injury?
Yeah. Well, if you're new to a spinal cord injury, I would say don't think about the long term. No one knows the future except you. Well, and you don't actually know. You don't even know the future. So no one knows the future. So just take it a day at a time. there's a lot you can do in a wheelchair that's actually amazing too. Um, and it's not, for me, it's not about the recovery as much as it's about finding purpose in the tragedy. And that was something I read a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which I highly recommend for anyone going through this. Definitely for you too. I mean, it's just so powerful. He talks about surviving the Holocaust and finding a meaning in suffering. And I think you're totally doing that, by the way, which is awesome. But yeah, for anyone going through it, you can always choose how you respond, and you can find a meaning in your suffering. And those are
Oh,
two
100%.
really powerful things that I took forward.
Yeah, that's amazing advice. And it's so true. It's like I have a saying where it's not the cards that you dealt with in life, it's how you play them that counts. Which is, I can't
Yes.
remember where I picked that up, but it's just like as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
You know?
that's it. That's it. And that's our final freedom as humans, is how we respond.
Exactly.
You can't control what happens to you, but you can always choose how you respond.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the same with people as well. You can control, how you respond to a person, but you can't, you don't have any control of how another person speaks to you, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, so that's amazing. So that's the end of part 1, guys. So thank you so much for David Francisco for coming on and chatting about that with us, because that's just phenomenal. So keep listening in
Yeah.
part 2 to hear about how David accepted and overcame an injury. Are you ready to fight back against your chronic illness and go from being disabled to enabled? Do you want to be an enabled warrior? Someone who is brave, strong, and confident, and someone who is ready to find a way to achieve awesome things despite a diagnosis? This is your invitation. Check out disabledtoenabled.com for articles and reviews to find out how you can become enabled too. If you think this podcast is better than sleeping in on Sundays, tickle that subscribe or follow button. Want to ask your questions to future guests? Make sure to share the episode with someone who needs some inspiration. Join the Enabled Warriors tribe on Facebook and look out for our question posts. Before we go, check out Disabled to Enabled on Instagram and stay enabled.